How do we feel about haunted hospitals? I'll start. I worked at an old hospital back in the late 90s. Looking back, I can't help but wonder if it was actually some medical experiment. It still bothers me how no one signed an NDA, but no one I've worked with have shown up in the news or something. A lot of strange shit went down when the stars were out. I worked in transport. My duties were mostly just hauling patients, meds, and specimens around the building from one place to another. During the day, it was a decent job. The people were nice, the pay was good, but I got in the graveyard post. The hospital offered double pay for people working overnight. I knew the guy that worked the grave shift in transport, and his description of the night duties were pretty cushy. There were maybe 3 or 4 calls a night for transport, so most of the night was just sitting back at the transport desk trying not to fall asleep. When I was hired on, he was thinking about quitting and going into construction. I thought I had an in. The hospital was built in this big sideways H, with each wing and floor designated for a particular type of medicine. On the second floor of the hospital, in the southern wing, was maternity. The eastern end was labor and delivery, L&D, and the western end was recovery. Centered on the north of the hall was the entrance with a massive, magnetically secured door. The door weighed 200 pounds and had 4 magnetic locks, one in each corner, holding it closed. The transport station where I worked was located directly across the hall from the security door inside the maternity wing. We operated the security door by letting people in and out on request. There was a camera outside we had access to so we could see who was coming in. There were cameras everywhere, but we only had a screen for one, and that's where the weirdness began. It turned out there was a damn good reason the hospital paid double for graveyard shifts. On my first night behind the desk, things were fine. The only thing that really got my attention was this one patient who kept walking up and down the hall in front of the transport station. Just before delivery, some women like to walk up and down the hall. I guess it helps get the baby into place or something. I saw it all the time during the day shift, so when I saw a girl walking by every hour or so, it didn't really faze me, until I noticed she didn't look pregnant. The thing is, once they have the baby, most don't get back up until they leave. Then I realized she was awful young to be having kids. The girl was maybe 16 or 17, and unhealthily thin, and she looked like she constantly wanted to puke. The girl was definitely no longer pregnant, if she had ever been, and if she had given birth. There was no way she'd be on her feet like that. I asked her a couple of times if she needed help, kinda my job, but she ignored me. Being a kid, I just thought, fuck you too, and went back to doing what I was doing. Even now, 2 decades later, I remember everything about that girl on that night. Things I should have noticed back then, like the fact she didn't have the right patient band on her wrist, or the fact her gown was all wrong and had the wrong lettering on the back. But the thing I really should have noticed was the IV pole she was pushing around. Transport was responsible for tracking the IV equipment. Her pole didn't have the pump/regulator all poles in the hospital had. She wasn't connected to a saline bag. She had a goddamn bottle on the pole, directly feeding to her wrist. I noticed all of it, but for some reason, it just didn't click that I needed to be asking questions. It wasn't until the second night that I started paying attention, especially when the same girl was walking the floor again for the second night in a row. Most new moms are in and out in a day, so I figured this girl must be a teen mom, or something with a premier baby. I decided she must have already had her baby, and he/she was in the NICU, leaving mom here in recovery. It made me feel bad to think about it, so I decided to get up and offer her a wheelchair. Kind of my job anyway. I was planning to offer her to take her to the NICU, so I got up, grabbed one of the standby chairs, and headed around to catch up to the girl. She's gone. From the last I saw her to the moment I lost her was less than 2 seconds. The nearest door, other than the security door, was a good 50 feet down the hall. Unless she sprinted, there was no way she could have made it down the hall to that door in any condition. I went straight to the recovery desk, which was the direction she was headed, and asked about the wandering patient. The nurses at recovery said there were no women in recovery. At this point, I was getting spooked. I wasn't thinking about ghosts or anything. I thought we had a loose patient that I've been ignoring all night. After a brief look down the hall for the girl, I booked it to L&D and asked the same question. They told me they had one woman on the floor, and she just received an epidural in the last 30 minutes. There's no fucking way that woman is walking around. At this point, I figured we have a missing patient. I called security to have the cameras checked and see where this unknown patient went. That's when I found out most of the cameras don't actually work. I spent a good hour walking around the hospital, calmly, asking every nurse I could find if all their patients are accounted for. There were no missing patients. Anywhere. As the night went on, the nurses started to understand what had happened, and some of the nurses caught up to me and pulled me aside to explain what just happened. I've seen one of their former patients. I don't know about most hospitals. Hell, I only know about this one particular hospital that I worked at. This place was extremely haunted. The girl I saw wasn't a pregnant mom. She wasn't even a patient when I saw her. I think she was a memory. On my second night, I was finally filled in on the real reason why the hospital paid the night staff so well. I kinda feel like that should have been a first night conversation. The nurses took a full hour to give me a good explanation of what to expect. Not everyone sees all the ghosts. Though some nurses see a ghost or entity or two in common, most stations are specific to each nurse. The sentence that really got my attention was, "The hospital prefers it when we're alone." When I heard that, I just about quit on the spot. But as time went on, like everyone else who worked the graveyard shift, I got used to it. I even started piecing together some of the stories of what happened to the people to make them linger. The maternity ward used to be the psych ward. Back in the mid-80s, some girl was brought in on a psych hold for attempting to overdose on pills. She managed to get into the meds on the floor and finish the job. After that, they closed the ward and moved the psych patients off-site to their own, separate hospital, and turned the old psych ward into maternity. I have more stories, but this was the most believable. The longer I worked there, the worse things got, and frankly, I still think there was some kind of experiment going on in that place. Things were so crazy at night, yet no one even talked about it during the day. Even me. There should have been so many news reports, or even ghost hunters out there. Nothing. The old hospital was converted into a government building in the 2010s. I don't know anyone who works there now, but the people I know working at the new hospital say things are normal. A couple years ago in Syracuse, New York, I was working night shift on a shitty floor in a hospital. A floor where multiple people have died over the years. Possibly many. It's an old hospital. Side note, you can tell when a hospital floor is new or old. The flooring, smells, and cleanliness give it away. This was an old, neglected, dirty floor that had not been renovated in ages. At night, sometimes, we would turn the lights out in the hallways so it was semi-lit, with lots of shadows. Occasionally, patients with dementia would yell out for loved ones who weren't there. This is normal. So one night, we're chilling at the nurse's station that sits in front of the 4 elevators, flanked by patient room hallways. After midnight, a couple elevators randomly opened with no one going in or out of them. In the dark, charge nurse, who was a young black lady, stood up and said, "Okay, no. Someone go turn the lights back on." Someone gave her lip, I think another lady nurse, and the charge girl said, "No, go turn them on." They turned the lights back on and the elevator stopped opening randomly. Granted, there are many explanations for this, but we assume that at least one of the elevators was haunted. If anyone wants to hear my shitty Iowa story, working on a shitty floor of a hospital as a nursing assistant on night shift, I have a chill old dude patient who laid in bed and had no major issues. Had to empty his drains pretty often. For those who don't know, these are like plastic bulbs that collect fluids after surgeries. But to flush his drainage down the toilet at like 5 a.m., toilet flushes and keeps flushing, and flushing, and flushing by itself. Toilet literally won't stop flushing. I jiggle the handle, try to twist parts of the pipes that look like they might do something. Patient himself doesn't care, but I worried about it overflowing and flooding the unit or something. Went to grab another CNA to show him and ask, "Have you seen this before?" He says no, that's a first. Call the maintenance guys. It takes one of them like an hour to get here. Meanwhile, a group of doctor residents come into the room and talk to the patient. Lead doctor lady looks at me and says, "Are you guys gonna do anything about that toilet?" I try to keep a straight face and say, "Yeah, we're working on it." They leave and the toilet keeps flushing itself for like an hour straight. Maintenance guy eventually comes and wrenches the water off. Wasted gazillions of gallons of water. And that's the story of the haunted toilet in Iowa City. I still have the video of it flushing. He didn't post it. BA'd in nursing home, working night shift. One of my favorite residents hits her call light. Head up to her room, walk in, greet her. She wants to go to the bathroom, of course. Slow as fuck because Parkinson's. Sweet lady though. get her seated on the toilet, and get her new deep end ready. "Who came in with you?" she says. "Nobody, Miss Ruth, it's just me." "No, someone followed you in. She was wearing a red dress." Someone else mentioned me being followed by a woman too. No idea who the woman would be based off of the red dress. Another couple moves in. Wife had a stroke and was mostly paralyzed on her left side. Husband totally able-bodied. She is a get up for night shift, which means we get her dressed and ready for the day at the end of our shift. Getting her ready one day. It was the morning of my birthday, and her husband tells us that he regrets not moving in sooner because we do a good job taking care of his wife. Tells me that he thinks he's getting sick and doesn't know if he'll be around much longer. We assure him that everything is okay and we're happy to have him with us. End shift. Fast forward to that evening before my shift. Nurse co-worker texts me that I'm about to walk into something crazy at work. Get to work, and she pulls me aside to tell me the husband shot the wife. And then offed himself. No one heard the gunshots because it was during dinner, when everyone was downstairs. Couple lived on the 3rd floor. Hubby left a suicide note. Aides had been in their room around midday and had noticed him writing something. Apartment is vacant for a few months while it's cleaned. Bathroom light turns on and off by itself all night long until new resident moves in. I really want to know what was said in the note. Apparently he called all other kids before he did the deed and no one answered. I think it was a suicide pact between him and his wife. He shot her in the side and she bled to death, but he shot himself in the head. A really paranormal but still spooky thing that happened to me. Be doctor on night shift. Around 2 a.m. was a busy night, so just want to go to sleep. Night nurse calls. "Anon, I need you in the ward right now." "Okay, what's up?" "Just come." Fuck that JPEG. Nurse is kinda cute, so whatever. Might as well do the night round on the stroke ward, how I'm actually supposed to. The bedrooms for the night shift doctors are in the basement. Ward is on the 4th floor. Go to the elevators. Piece of shit stingy hospital turns off the lights at night to save money. Wait there in the dark. Elevator arrives. Piece of shit old elevator door slowly open. Light in the elevator is flickering, like a cheap horror movie. Fucking janitor should get his shit together. Slightly spooky, but like hell, I'm taking the stairs at 2 a.m. Take the elevator up to the ward. Nurse is standing in front of a room, obviously spooked. Weird scratchy noises from inside. She's too afraid to look herself. Gotta be a man. Be brave. Open the door. Old lady is crawling on the floor and scratching against the door with her nails. Commence heart attack. Apparently Granny just forgot she's paralyzed and wanted to go to the toilet. So instead of calling for help, she crawled to the door and started scratching. Help her back to bed. Do my round. Examine some patients. One room had 2 new patients. Let's call them Bob and Bill. Bob had a stroke and became almost blind from that. Bill also had a stroke, but wasn't that badly affected, but he was quite senile. Bob sits in bed when I get into the room. "Doc, I'm all better. I can see again." Doubt.exe. Ask him what he saw. "My wife is sitting there, but she's missing her head." Okay, that's kind of fucked up. Tell him to go to sleep and turn around. Bill stands right behind me in the dark room. Didn't hear him at all. Shit bricks. He's right. I saw her too. She was missing her head though. Well, fuck this. You both go to sleep right now. One more room to go. Some crazy old guy. Let's call him Buck. When I get in, Buck is crawling under his bed with his phone's flashlight like he's looking for something. "Did you drop something, Buck?" "I'm looking for the hole where the little man came out from. They took Bob's wife's head." Fuck this shit. Nope, out of there. Nurse isn't that cute anyway. Prescribe a sedative for each of them and go back to my room. Lie down. Still spooked, but mainly tired. Toilet starts flushing on its own. Not even spooked anymore, just pissed. Yell. Fuck off. I'm going to sleep. Flushing stops. Go to sleep. Nothing spooky after that. Kinda weird how it happened all in the same shift.